So good morning. Thank you, Luke, for joining this initiative. It's a pleasure for us to count with your participation. And I think we can already start with the first interview. We want to ask you about what is Enough doing, what's the idea behind this startup.
Yeah, sure, of course. Thank you for inviting me for this talk. So Enough's a startup which is developing mycoprotein. So mycoprotein is a protein derived from the fermentation of fungi with the input feed crops of sugar and grains to produce the product which is called Abunda. So Enough is based in Europe, in Scotland, and we also manage a 10-partner consortium called Plenitude, which is an EU CBE flagship project, which is currently having the main output of building a facility in the Netherlands, which will be, to our knowledge, the largest non-animal protein facility globally.
And how did this idea of creating Enough, how was it the process to create? What was the inspiration for creating actually Enough?
So I wasn't at Enough when it was created. I joined in January, but I can speak to what inspired me personally in terms of sustainable protein.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I've been working for a few years on food now, and I come from a health background originally, and in medicine specifically. And it's interesting coming from a medical background because you see lots of people in hospitals who are suffering from overweight and obesity and all the diet related impacts of that. And one approach to take for addressing those challenges, but also the environmental impacts of food and also the animal welfare impacts of food, is trying to work on, for example, public health through policy and advocacy and educating consumers about why the environment is important and how you can eat in terms of that. And another is trying to create products that meet what consumers are looking for in food. So namely being affordable and tasty and convenient and meeting these other qualities and giving a viable alternative. So I really wanted to work on the overall challenge of having a more sustainable and ethical food system. And I think that one way of doing that is through offering alternative products that are better than what they're trying to replace in terms of particular styles and animal source foods in certain contexts.
And how is a typical working day when you are here working in Enough?
So the good thing about my role at Enough, which is Plenitude Project Coordinator, Plenitude being the consortium we're organizing, which I mentioned earlier, is that there isn't a very typical working day. So a good thing is that my role is quite varied and I work on quite a few different areas of work, but I will try to give a little bit more information than that. So half of my job is working on Plenitude. So that is mainly project coordination of our partners. So speaking with them either via email or over calls and making sure that we're on top of everything we need to deliver to the funding body. Also trying to think about what we can do in terms of communications to the public. So for example, recently we collaborated with another European project building materials out of fungi, as well as some American partners also working on sustainability applications of fungi. So that's something that I have been working on over the last few weeks, which involves project management essentially. And then another half of my role is working on policy for Enough. So essentially what can be done and in what ways can policymakers support the industry through funding and supportive policy. And there, lots of the work is trying to stay on top of public perceptions of the industry. So for example, reading academic papers, reading media reports, and then also working with partners from NGOs, other companies, and researchers to think about how can our sector be more sustainable and deliver more social impact? And then how can we communicate that to policymakers as well?
And how was like your career path for reaching this kind of such a diverse role?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, my original background was in medicine. So I did 4 years of a medical degree in Australia. I then realized that I wanted to switch to working on sustainability. So I had about 1 year of really just looking at all the different options, trying to speak to people in sustainability and trying to understand what different options are for working in the area. So I, for example, attended a couple of different conferences, did some volunteering as a research assistant, and really spent that year trying to figure out where I was going. And then since then, I've worked on food and sustainability from research. So I did a 1-year research degree. I also have been involved with some policy campaigns. So trying to get more policy support for sustainable diets. And then some of the key experience I got was also through volunteering with university groups. And that finished in 2020. And then last year, I worked at the World Food Programme, which is the UN's humanitarian agency. And there I was working on policy as well, which then led me to attend the COP26 climate conference in Glasgow, which is where I met Enough. So I guess it's been trying to make an impact on sustainable food from a few different angles. And right now has led to my role at Enough.
Yeah, it's like a really good path because you have tried to find like your way. You knew that you wanted to be in this field, but you didn't know actually like how. So you want to actually to explore all the different options. So that's really nice. And like from your perspective, what have been written the different challenges that you have faced when trying to join this field and to start working in this field?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's something that I've thought about a lot because in 2018 was when I left medical school, and then I knew that I wanted to work on sustainability, particularly climate change, but that was really the extent of my knowledge. I didn't know anything about climate change or energy. I didn't have any connections in the area. I didn't have any relevant skills or knowledge or work experience. So I think that it took at least a year or two to really reach out to different people, do lots of reading, research organizations, ask people to speak over coffee, trying to go to conferences where possible, and meeting people and getting a little bit more of a foothold, and then trying to do some further study in the area. So I think the challenge is if many people I know say, okay, I want to change my line of work and I want to get into something like sustainability, and it's such a big area that covers the entire economy and society, it's a bit hard to know where to start. So I think that the challenge is realizing that it might take a bit of time to find where you can contribute yourself and to make a switch, and really to keep in your mind why you are doing that and why you're wanting to work in an impact-driven area, essentially.
Like after all this experience of your career change, do you have any advice to give to students who are actually probably also in the same position as you were some years ago?
Yeah, so there's a few things I'd say here. First of all is that if you're a student and you decide not immediate, say you're in my position where you're maybe 24, you're finishing your studies and you realize, okay, I actually want to work in sustainability, or I want to work in the bioeconomy, or I want to work on social impact. You can think, oh, I've done all this study in a different area. Maybe it's not relevant. Maybe I don't have any experience. But I think that the main thing would be if there's something you're really driven to work on, it'll be hard getting off the ground in the first year or two, and you might need to do some searching and have some patience, but it really will pay off. And then I would definitely encourage people to make a switch if that's what they need, But and more broadly, this applies to people who might have actually started studying the correct degree from the beginning, or people switching. As a student, the good thing is you have a lot of spare time, and there's a lot of ways you can tailor your degree, for example, with work experience or with short-term research projects or volunteering with a student group, or even just reaching out to people who inspire you and saying, I'm a student who's really inspired by your work. Would you mind catching up with me for 30 minutes for a coffee so I can learn about your area of work? I think that as a student, people are very open to speaking with you. And there's many people I reached out to whose work I was really inspired by, who I thought maybe there's a 10% chance they'll reply. And lots of these people actually do reply if you bother to take the time to really read their work and mention, this is the specific reason I want to speak to you individually. So I would really encourage people to not be scared to reach out and even mention that you're a student, because I don't know what it is about being a student, but something about being a student means that people are open to speaking to you. Maybe it's they know that you're not going to take their job next year, or maybe they just remember being a student themselves. So I'd really encourage people to make sure that you're putting in the effort to move into a field you actually care about, to reach out to people and seek opportunities in your own time, which really pays off and helped me get to a professional role in the area. And then also just to continue to reach out to people, particularly that you're inspired by, and see the path they took to get into their area.
That's great. Like actually, after all this small conversation, I can also say that you have like highlighted the importance of contacts and of networking itself. Like, and that it's normal to have this kind of fear when you want to do some kind of a career change, especially when, as you were telling, when you are almost done with your degree already. So I think that like an important remark that you are normally also talking about in this goal is that like to leave that fear behind, and if you want it, like go after it, and you just need to find a way to reach the correct people and to reach the correct places where you can find more information and when you can find actually your place. So this has been very inspirational. I think it motivates young people also to know that they have possibilities, even if they haven't started before, that there is always a chance to do it. So thank you a lot, Luke. I think this has been very a good small talk. Yeah, I think we will be in touch, and young people can actually reach you out in case they have any doubt, or if they are interested also in this kind of initiatives or sector. So we really appreciate your contributions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.